it's just this feeling of really growing up in a company town, a feeling that your voice, your experience really doesn't matter, that profits come before you, no matter what. That if you are impacted by the actions of this for-profit organization, at best they're going to throw some pennies at you to get you to shut up. It's really belittling, disempowering. And I think that feeling, that impact on the community is pervasive.
AB 32 is a very complicated law. It's also an ambitious one. I think if we can achieve the goals that the law has set out, we will, being the 9th largest economy in the world, we will be a model for the country and potentially for other countries, other industrialized countries. That said, environmental justice advocates are concerned that the law and its implementation is not doing enough to take into account localized impacts of the facilities that are going to be regulated to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Our community has lived, in the vicinity of this refinery since its beginning, which was over 100 years ago. So the impact on our community from this big polluter, the Chevron Richmond refinery, is major. We have among the highest rates of asthma and cancer and heart-related diseases in the state.
I grew up here, and living in the shadow of Chevron, it was never really regarded as a negative thing when I was a child. And I remember the first time I saw a flare, it was wow, because it lit up the whole night sky. When I was about 8 years old, it was one of the first times my parents let me out of the house at night to go around the corner to a friend's house. When I got further up the block and I could actually get an elevation to look down upon the refinery, I saw this pipe with this massive flame that was shooting up probably 50, 60 feet high in the air. And, as an 8-year-old kid, where even sparklers and, fireworks is exciting, that was really exciting. I mean, it was like dramatic. I'd never seen anything like that in my life, much less anybody explained it to me. In retrospect, it was like they were flushing the toilet right on our heads. And I thought it was cool because I didn't know any better.
It's always hard to pin Chevron down for what you really know has to be happening. I can take, my house is kind of like the kid house on our block, and there's just, any given night there's like 10 kids coming through to play with my kids and whatnot. And of that group of kids, probably 80% of them have asthma, using inhalers, like ridiculous. They should be healthy, regular kids, but, 8 out of 10 of them are on an inhaler, and if they run too much, they have to get some medicine. That's abnormal.
I've known people all my life who've gotten cancer and died. In my nuclear family, there were 5 siblings. 3 of my siblings have had cancers.
I personally do not think the cap-and-trade program is the answer to reversing climate change, and it certainly isn't the way to bring about better health for our community. It's clear that on a daily basis, our community suffers from the emissions of pollutants that come into our atmosphere based on the fact that the refinery emits all kinds of pollutants. The greenhouse gas emissions, of course, are big because the Chevron Richmond refinery is the largest greenhouse gas point source emitter in the state. But when greenhouse gas emissions are put out, they don't, by a refinery, they're not simply GHG emissions, horrible as that in itself is, but they also come with co-pollutants.
The law has very explicit language that environmental justice concerns need to be taken into account as the law is implemented, and that no implementation or regulation can further exacerbate existing inequities. The challenge is, how can we take advantage of some of the co-benefits of greenhouse gas reductions? And I think there's some regulatory resistance to taking that extra step to really think about how we create a system, cap and trade or otherwise, that can benefit the most vulnerable communities. We have an opportunity here, and I think to some extent regulators are a little reticent to take that leap forward.
AB 32 is landmark legislation designed to really reduce greenhouse gas emissions here in the state of California, but it is a piece of legislation, and so in that process of sausage making, you don't come out with everything that you would like. Part of that is the allowance of cap and trade. Frankly, we believe that it's not only damaging to the state as a whole, but it's damaging particularly to low-income communities that tend to be communities of color here in California, who have been the most victimized over time, and that therefore this is an issue of environmental injustice.
When I think about the California greenhouse gas law, my concerns are that places like Richmond are going to become a dumping ground for pollutants, and the benefits of that cap and trade policy will actually be seen in other places, in more affluent places. I would prefer that the impact for all of us using petroleum be shared more evenly, more equally, in terms of class and socioeconomic status, ethnicity, area, region, instead of having just these dumping grounds and communities that aren't really equipped to speak out and be heard.